Hey there, welcome to yet another installment of Strange Planet. Don't forget to give us a 5-star review and leave a comment. It helps with the algorithms, or so I'm told. Way above my pay grade. Anyway, what happens when you tell the truth in a country that only pretends to value free speech? You get silenced, you get erased, you get branded a conspiracy theorist by people who know you're onto something real. Well, that's exactly what happened to Sarah Westall. She's not a fringe character. She's a former systems engineer, a university instructor, and a successful business executive who built one of the most watched independent shows on the internet. Her reporting on corruption and human trafficking was so effective, so damning, that it had to be neutralized. And how did they do it? Simple. They hijacked her work, folded into the QAnon psyop without her knowledge, then declared her guilty by association. From there, the punishment was swift. YouTube deleted her channel just as it was taking off. Patreon wiped out nearly 2,000 paying subscribers overnight. Fraudulent accounts were allowed to impersonate her and steal her audience while she was left without recourse. Think about that. The real journalists get silenced while the frauds are protected. Is that an accident? Of course not. It's deliberate. It's the model. And Sarah Westall has lived it, and she's here today not just to tell her story, but to expose the larger pattern, how big tech, corporate media, and yes, intelligence agencies are working together to crush dissent and control what you're allowed to know. Sarah is a fearless investigative journalist, seasoned business executive, systems engineer, as I mentioned, former university instructor. The Sarah Westall Show is a leading platform in independent media, delivering fearless investigative journalism, breakthrough science, health innovation, and uncensored geopolitical insights. With a reputation for exposing hidden truths and challenging mainstream narratives, Sarah brings expert guests, whistleblowers, and thought leaders to the forefront. Her show, Business Game Changers, ranked number 8 in business news on Apple, and distributed by Crossover Media Group, reaches over 3 million monthly views and downloads across Rumble, Apple Podcasts, Substack, and other distribution platforms. Sarah, welcome to Strange Planet. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you. Thank you. You say your work was hijacked into a political psyop you had nothing to do with, the so-called QAnon trap. Walk us through exactly how that happened. I mean, who set the trap? Why do you think you were targeted?
Well, I did a 6-part series with James Rothstein, Jimmy Boots. He was a detective out of New York who he was brought into New York to work the Minnesota Strip, as it was called, because they brought a lot of young girls to work this road in New York. And he said it took him 2 weeks before he realized this was human trafficking. It's not prostitution like people think it is. But I did this 6-part series, and I'll tell you a little deeper information about him, but I was approached to put one of my episodes into this book called Welcome to the Great Awakening, or QAnon, Welcome to the Great Awakening. I didn't know what QAnon was. And I told Jim, I go, there's a book that's about truths. They want to get out truths that people don't know about. And Q, I thought, was just like questions, right? And learning things. And this was, how would you imagine? Could you imagine if somebody came to you that you would think that there would be this QAnon psyop that swept the country and the world with this intelligence operations to bring in a change in the country? Would you think that was possible? I mean, I didn't know. And I'm like, but we need to get this information about human trafficking, because he took down more pedophile networks in the country than anybody in our country, period. He worked with Roy Cohn, who was the infamous guy out of New York in Washington, D.C. that had Hoover blackmailed. He had generals. He had all sorts of people blackmailed. He was Donald Trump's mentor in the 80s. And in that time of his life, he flipped. And he decided he wanted to change his life and make a difference. And he was funding orphanages. This guy grew up in an orphanage, and he was brutally abused and used. And he turned around and became what happened to him. But at the end of his life, he changed it around. He was funding orphanages. He was an informant for Jimmy Boots. And Detective Ryston is his name. That's Boots is his nickname. Mm-hmm. But you wouldn't be able to take down the the most pedophiles networks and within the CIA in the country without an informant like this, right? And a lot of these circles, these pedophile networks, went all the way up to the UN, to the Vatican, to really high-profile places.
Sorry to interrupt, but I mean, at that part at least of the whole QAnon so-called psyop is actually true, right? I mean, this is something that they've espoused.
Well, yeah, the Epstein came forward, right? The Epstein. Now, I was in his driveway the day that Epstein died. And he said, Sarah, this is just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, they use it as, I mean, that might have been a more organized group, but they're not going to just use it once. I mean, this started from the beginning of history. Of course, if they're going to do wars and take out 1 million people, they're going to blackmail somebody. I mean, it's not, we know that blackmail and coercion exists. It's just using little kids to do it or using kids. I think Epstein was a cleaner version of some of the things that actually are happening. But according to, my research, but it's been proven, it's out there, it's everywhere now, right? That was my contribution. And the thing is I brought this forward before it was part of the human consciousness. Before I was first is the problem. I was first. And it was a big part of the QAnon movement was blackmail and child trafficking. That was a big part of QAnon. And I didn't follow Q. I had a couple people on. I'm like, what the heck is Q? Right? Like everybody else. But I'm an investigative journalist. I'm not going to read Q posts and think it's true. I need to have primary sources, and I need to understand where these things are coming from. I can't just have an anonymous person telling me things and then I believe it's true. It's just not how I work. And so after that happened, I was taken off everywhere. In 2020, I was taken off YouTube. I was taken off. It was an organized intel operations to take us off everywhere. It wasn't just me. It was a group of people. But 2 weeks before the election, I was taken off. Same day Donald Trump was taken off Twitter, I was taken off Twitter. My Patreon account was canceled. My website was taken down. I was shadow banned everywhere. My LinkedIn was taken. All of this was taken down in a period of a couple months. It was a coordinated activity, and the reason they told me was because I was related to QAnon. Patreon specifically kept telling me it was because of QAnon. And GoDaddy, who took down my website, said they said the people were appalled. We don't get involved in politics. They helped me get my domain name back, the employees, but it was their federal crime division that took down my website.
Wow. So who set the trap? Just so I understand here, was it someone that lured you deliberately somehow into QAnon and then used that association and then used the association as an excuse?
I think that the QAnon trap was using an association as an excuse to take me down when I wasn't a QAnon follower. I got associated with it because of that, and then they used it as a reason to smear me and take me down. I mean, multiple mainstream media news articles about me being this conspiracy theorist. That's what happened. And then they use that as a convenient way of labeling me when that's not, I wasn't that.
Because you upset someone with the reportage on human trafficking, was cutting a little too close to the bone. And so they labeled it conspiracy. Look she's a QAnon follower. We can't take anything she says seriously. Is that the playbook?
Yeah, she's a nut job.
Yeah.
I think they do that. They use Q to smear as many people as they possibly could. And everybody's a bunch of nut jobs who have anything relation to Q. It's like, well, I am not related to Q. That's how I got into that. That was a trap for me because I had no idea that what Q was, or what I think it might have been a trap for anybody that got involved with it in the sense of my situation. They didn't tell us that this was going to be a big operation and who Q was. It was more of, hey, do you want to be in this truth book? You know what I mean? And so to me, I felt like I was lured into, I had really good investigative work, and I was lured into a Q campaign. I think they used that because it was #1 on 17 categories on Amazon, and it was a international bestseller. I'm an international best-selling author because of that book. And I think we weren't told, anybody that weren't told that this is going to be a massive Q movement, was going to be a massive movement to change the country. It fundamentally changed our country. And I got accused of being part of that. And I wasn't.
No. Do you think that the entire formation of QAnon was orchestrated by what? An intelligence organization in order to smear people?
No. That's I think there's two aspects of it. I think they use people to get this information out there, and then the opposition used it to smear people. And the people that used it to get it out there, they didn't care what happened to the people that were working to get this information out there. I think everybody was using everybody, to be honest. I guess the ends justify the means. I am not, can I say, I don't feel bad. I don't regret getting this information out there, because millions of people learned about human trafficking from that and learned about blackmail from that. Whitney Webb's book came out after that, and she was really put up on a pedestal, even though this was the first. They didn't want to point to this. They needed to have something else to point to. I mean, there's indications she's probably part of intelligence, or intelligence used her and paid her. There's evidence of that. So that is, they had to bring out something that was not affiliated with Q to bring that information forward in a different light. They didn't care what happened to people like me, if that makes sense.
Right. And your source, Jimmy Boots, we called him.
Yes.
He says that this human trafficking pedophile ring went all the way to the top, to the various agencies in the United Nations. Inside the CIA as well?
Yeah, I mean, he's an amazing, people in intelligence, he's a legend in the intelligence world. And he is considered an American hero. And people in intelligence all know who he is. He's just a known person. And yes, he has shown that it goes all the way up. And like I said, his informant was Roy Cohn. And people know. In the intelligence world, he is a legend.
So big tech, they claim to defend democracy, but your deplatforming obviously shows the opposite. What did YouTube and Patreon and others, or what did they really silence? I mean, was it dangerous misinformation or inconvenient truths?
Well, I think Patreon was more forthright in telling me we're canceling you because of QAnon. That's what they told me. And I told them I'm not a QAnon follower. So they left me up for a few weeks longer and then took me down. YouTube just took us all down and accused us of being QAnon people. And then later, they now just say I bully and harass people with absolutely no evidence whatsoever. And I'm not the only one, obviously. Bullying, harassing is quite common for those people who are saying inconvenient things, right? But what is it that, I'm not bullying, right? Literally, Candace Owens is being sued by the president of France for bullying harassment, but she's up there.
Right. That's true. Just a quick aside, just before Canada's last federal election, my own X account was permanently suspended. No warning, no explanation, no response to at least half a dozen appeals. I mean, and I was told by someone I've interviewed who was former CIA, that's their playbook. Now, X has offices here in Canada. I was deeply critical of the new Liberal government here. I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but do you see that as part of the same pattern on a much smaller scale, obviously?
I think it is the pattern. I think that they are taking down anyone who has a voice that, if I was truly nutty and then they might leave me up there because it helps their cause. But if I come across as somebody who they want people, because I can reach people across the aisle. I'm not that strange. And I'm maybe center right. I'm not really far one direction or the other. And they don't want that voice out there. They do not want anything that actually can move the needle talking to their people. They want someone like me. I always say I have to stay on the plantation because I'm too vocal of a person that can move the needle and can get average people to see things differently. And I think that's what truth does, right? Truth speaks for itself. If I'm really speaking the truth, that resonates with people. People who watch me for a long time know that I'm sincere. I'm not paid by intelligence. I'm doing this from my heart, sincerely trying to bring information to people. And I think people that have watched me for years know that.
So then YouTube went one step further. They actually allowed fraudulent channels to impersonate you while banning your actual channel. How do you explain that? I mean, was that incompetence or something more sinister?
Well, I don't know. They know about it. I've told them. I have to use legal channels now to get it down. So I'm in the process of writing letters and to getting my channels, those impersonation channels, down. But there's 3 of them right now. And in their search results, they come up at the top before my own work. You go to YouTube, search for my name. It comes up on top. It makes me look bad because, I don't know, they're probably shadow banned too. So the numbers don't look good. And I have been financially hurt by that. I've had numerous people not want to advertise with me because I'm either my channels are too small, or because they look at YouTube and they say, well, what is this? And these are the impersonation channels, or they don't, they don't like what they see about now. One thing is people won't necessarily invest with you or advertise with you if you're not on YouTube, but they also won't advertise with you if you are too small on YouTube. And so these aren't even my channels.
Getting back to...
how it is. It's media, right?
Oh, yeah. Just trying to decide what is big tech at work here and what is, let's say, the CIA, because Detective Rothstein, Jimmy Boots, talked about CIA blackmail networks, which is pretty explosive material, obviously. I mean, is that what put you in the crosshairs, linking these human trafficking rings to honeypot operations by the CIA?
I think that is a big part of it. I think that's why they're taking it's Epstein on steroids, right? It's exposing the Epstein, and they do not want these institutions to be tarnished by the truth. And they claim it's about protecting national security, but our national security, and I'm going to argue this, if our children and covering up for the harmful acts that are happening against our children is protecting national security, then there's something wrong with us.
Seriously.
Our national security is safer when we clean this activity up.
You said you stand by your chapter because it helped save lives. Can you maybe cite some examples of how your work directly prevented trafficking crimes or maybe exposed perpetrators?
Well, I think it came before all of these conferences and all of these people talking about it and all the billboards you see on the highways. And it became something that people talked about. It was the predecessor to the movie on human trafficking. It really got people talking. And now it was one piece of the puzzle, but I think it was a large piece of the puzzle. We never had millions of people reading and talking about it before. And that was a huge catalyst for that movement. And so I don't regret that it happened. It is frustrating how they've reacted to it. Instead of doing what was right, these people behaved like criminals and thugs to cover it up. and then turned around and beat the crap out of the messenger, because the messenger is the person in the wrong, not the activities of harmful behavior towards children and hurting our country in a fundamental way.
You know, investigative journalists used to be celebrated for challenging power. Now they're either smeared, they're demonetized, silenced, or I guess just kind of co-opted, which I think sort of explains what's happening in mainstream media. They're carrying water for, journalists were supposed to afflict the powerful and comfort the vulnerable, and now they've sort of flipped that on its head. I mean, who's behind that reversal? The government, corporate media, intelligence agency?
Well, there's multiple things that go on. You know, the CIA talking points that went out at 4 a.m. in the morning, those were real. The USAID, who were funding 7,000 different journalists around the country and world, that was real. And so that's all drying up, thank God, because they took a lot of that down. But that's what they were doing. In 2012, when the Smith-Mudd Act went through, which legalized propaganda against the American people, which the ACLU stood behind, and George Soros gave them $50 million that year, and they helped push it through. They claimed that it would be the best thing for freedom of speech. And all they did is propagandize the American people. And that changed our country. That was the beginning of the war on the American people. We are the subject of a mind war where they're attacking us from all angles. And that Smith-Mudd Act, which allows the government funds to be used to propagandize the American people, should be overturned and should be illegal. We should not accept that. We should not allow our government to lie to us and not use our tax money to pay for them to lie to us. That's not okay.
So let's zoom out a little bit here. What does your experience reveal about the future of free speech and independent media in America? I mean, are we witnessing the end of free inquiry or the birth maybe of a parallel system outside the mainstream?
I think both. I think the mainstream had some hints of freedom of speech, and that's dying. We all thought we had freedom of speech. That's why we stumbled into it so unaware and thinking we could just do what was right. I think that the people who are aware of what's going on think it's unacceptable. They made a mistake of persecuting too many people widespread and took away too many voices. So it became too obvious to too many. So that created this parallel world, right? Where we're same with you. You know, you're talking about things where we're all waking up to the reality of COVID. Really helped too. The fact that they were censoring so many doctors and people were horrified by it. So I think that we will have two realities: the reality of the people that are stuck in that mind, that paradigm, where they can't see anything but the propaganda that's being fed to them, not much different than the Soviet Union was with Pravda, with their propaganda outlets. And then the parallel system is people just searching for the truth. That's what Jesus, that's the true Christian godly way. I mean, I don't want to necessarily bring in Christianity. I mean, it's any kind of truth, any kind of higher frequency, better way of living is about truth, right? And there's a whole movement of people that are like, I don't want to be lied to. I want to understand, because facing as ugly as the truth is, we can't be better as a human species without understanding what the truth is. Lying is violent. I mean, think of during COVID, not allowing people to see that real treatments that were working. That is a violent act. Not letting people see and know about human trafficking of little kids so that we can do something about it is a violent act against these children. It's violence to hold our right back of not only speaking the truth. I think it's worse to not hear the truth. That's why our founders said you'll be sheep led to the slaughter. We literally lived through that.
We did. You mentioned Jesus Christ. I think that's why we're also seeing sort of this parallel track, attacking free speech, but also attacking Christians for that very reason, because Christians, we won't be denied the truth. And so we're a threat.
The truth will set you free.
Yes.
The truth will set you free. There's a reasons why, I grew up Christian. Some of the Christians that kind of get into their own sect, I think they get lost along the way. But I think the ones that truly follow what Jesus taught, it's beautiful. I mean, the teachings of Jesus is absolutely incredible, and about truth and acceptance and loving others. And people don't realize, women's rights, Black rights, the end of slavery, all the evils that have happened. I think anybody that it doesn't care about people's sovereignty and free agency, that was all Christians that pushed that forward.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
And they don't realize Christians believe in free agency and valuing every human being and every spirit from all walks of life. And when they project Christianity as being this hateful, judgmental group, I don't believe that is what it is to be a Christian. That surely wasn't Jesus's teachings. And I think they don't want that to come forward.
Are you, with the change in government, we're 8 months into Trump 2.0? I mean, are you more hopeful now than during the preceding 4 years about the state of freedom of speech in America and independent media?
Well, I think the Trump administration is a lot better than the last one. Do I think that it'll get reversed? I don't know. I think that there's still a lot of challenges. I think we're in a better position in some ways, and in other ways, we're not. I think there's one heck of a fight going on, and I think it's behind the scenes. I think there's factions at the highest level of globally as this economic reset is occurring. There really is a lot of headwinds coming. And so we're going to be going through a lot. It depends on who wins, right? And I think that there is two very philosophical differences in these global factions that are fighting. And one is kind of the old world, one is the new world, and not everybody's going to like what this new world is about. And there'll be a lot of opportunity to complain about it. But the old world had some pretty evil things going on. And so I see a better way forward because of that. But I think we need to get ahead of some of these things so that we can maintain freedom. And I can dive into some of this, but it's technocracy, which is basically using science and AI and all these things to run society, is very real. It's really happening. And that's the new faction. And I think we need to get involved more and have more educated people so that we can use these tools to for our benefit without taking away, stripping all our freedoms. And I think we have an opportunity to do that if we got involved.
Sarah, leave us with some websites. How do we find you on various platforms?
Okay, you can go to sarahwestall.com. You can also go to my Substack. I have quite a decent following there at sarahwestall.substack.com. I'm on many different platforms. Rumble, I'm on, so you can find me there. I'm also now with Crossover Media, so I'm very happy about my partnership with them. And I think you can find me almost everywhere. Apple, I rank high on Apple. Apple was the one mainstream place. They didn't promote me, but they didn't hurt me either. Just let me be. And I just ranked 6th in business news, and I ranked like 176th in regular news. So I've been doing really well, and I rank in about 4 dozen countries. So people around the world are listening, and I just appreciate everybody who does. And like you said at the beginning of your show, comment, thumbs up, share the work. That's the only way to get this information out there, because being censored and shadow banned for telling the truth is real. It's happening.
Sarah, great meeting you. Thank you so much. I hope we can do it again sometime.
Absolutely.
Sarah Westall.
A new Richard Syrett's Strange Planet drops every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.